Welcome back, everybody, and today we are going to get to the chopper and learn how to paint camouflage. Painting camouflage is a lot easier to do than you may think. As you can tell by the length of this video, I painted these pants in about 10 minutes. And the reason it's so easy, we do something I recommend you normally don't do. Break the, air quote, rules, unair quote, of painting. Alright, let's begin. We're going to start off with a base coat, not a shade, a base coat mix of Vallejo Model colors Camo Olive Green and Military Green. And to this, we are going to highlight only twice. First, a mix of Camo Olive Green with Uniform Green added to it, and then we're going to mix a little Game Color Dead Flesh. And here's where we break our first rule. We only did one base coat and two highlights. That's normally not enough contrast, but in this case, contrast is bad. Normally, when painting miniatures, contrast is really good. You want deep shadows and high highlights. It helps to create depth on the miniature. But in this case, we are painting a complex pattern. And if we add a lot of contrast to that complex pattern, you're not going to be able to see the pattern. It's going to be hidden in all those deep shadows and high highlights. So we are going to go with just two highlights over a base coat. You can get away with just doing one, to be honest. However, I always feel to go a little bit farther, and it just feels like I'm not painting if I'm not doing at least two. Next comes our first camo color. For that, I'm using Game Color Charred Brown, and I'm trying to recreate the pattern that I'm seeing in the movie. So I'm not just doing lines or dots here. I'm painting, the technical term is splorches. And here is where we break our second rule. We are not attempting to paint in scale. Normally, when painting a miniature, if you're painting something freehand, you want to shrink it down to 1/56 its life size. However, in this case, that's pretty much impossible because we have a very tight woven camouflage pattern. And if we paint that in scale, all we're going to have is little tiny lines, and it's just going to be a blur to the human eye. The same thing applies if we were painting a flowery dress, for example. You need to increase the size of the flowers so you can actually tell that there are flowers. So same thing here, increase the size of our little camo splorches. Unlike the large surface area we were covering with our first green color, our brown splorches are only going to get one highlight, mixing in some Game Color Beastie Brown to our charred brown. And the important thing here to remember is that we are highlighting the pants and not the brown. So don't highlight in the center of the brown portions, highlight the folds or the edges of the folds like you would if you were just painting the pants all one color. The second color of splorches I'm going to paint is, I'm going to use a Vallejo Model Khaki and then add buff to that for our highlights. Don't be afraid to go over the brown that you painted if needed. You can do that. The one thing I want to point out here is that remember that camouflage it's a pattern of fabric which is then sewn into pants. So when it comes to seam lines, I like to stop the pattern and then pick it up somewhere else. So for example, where there's a pocket, I'm going to stop that khaki little spot and then pick it up maybe on the other side of the pocket or somewhere else, but it should end where the fabric is covered or cut or what have you. Adds a little bit more realism to your camouflage and also helps to define those areas like pockets and whatnot. If you wish, depending on the camouflage pattern you are painting, you can add a third color of blotches. It really depends on the pattern you're trying to go for. I wouldn't go farther than that because once again, if you add too much color, it's going to just become too busy and harder to visualize. For my final color, I'm actually painting lines here, just kind of squiggly lines, little twigs, once again trying to recreate the pattern that I see in the movie. These are going in between our khaki and dark brown areas, kind of just branching them off here and there. And again, it helps I'm using this color to redefine our other two colors that we applied. So if something's not covered, or I don't like that khaki color there, I'll just cover it up with the black. And the last thing we have to do is our shade. Remember, we haven't added any shade to this miniature yet, and we are going to use our universal brown wash for shade. Model color Camo Black Brown with some model color military green in that. And I'm just carefully placing it in the recesses. And this is going to shade the brown areas, the green areas, the khaki areas, all the areas. So this is going to give us a little bit of shadow, but not too much, and it's not going to overdo the contrast. And there we go, all done with our super easy, super quick camouflage painting. Now, I had to paint a whole squad of these guys, so I painted them fairly quick. Literally, camouflage took about 10 minutes, miniatures took about an hour or two, depending on how detailed they were. Ironically, the ones with more camouflage got painted faster. If you want more detailed camouflage, if you have a flat surface, you can definitely spend more time on it. Or if you have a huge army you want to paint, you can just do the base coat colors, skip the highlighting, and just apply that final wash as your shade. And that's good enough for when you're painting dozens and dozens. So that is it for this one. Short video. I did say this is going to be quick and simple, didn't I? Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, don't get too complex when you're painting a complex pattern. If you did like this, please be sure to comment below. Helps out the channel. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Watch out for snakes!